Good evening and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, February 14th, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. First item under on our agenda this evening is 1.1, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary or non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this evening? Seeing none, moving on to the acceptance of the agenda, item 2.1. There's one addition to the agenda that I would need someone to make a motion to accept. We have 6 additional emails regarding agenda item 6.1 regarding the public hearing for video lottery terminals. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the additional 6 emails? Councillor Beekman, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Okay. So we have Deputy Mayor Avery opposed to the additional 6 emails onto the agenda. Is there any other further discussion? I just want to confirm one more time the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Chapman, Councillor Avery. Thank you. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Saylor, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3.1, adoption of the previous minutes from our regular council meeting of January 24th. Was there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated? Councillor Reese, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, business arising from the minutes, item 4.1, council meeting location. Our CAO, Kalen Hastings, is going to present on that.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. The purpose of this report is to request that council provide direction to administration on the council meeting location moving forward now that the province's restriction exemption program has been lifted. This matter has appeared before council previously. Previously, in response to the pandemic, staff were instructed to move council meetings from the town office building located at 1920 17th Street to the large meeting room here located in the facility referred to as the Hub. As further developments within the pandemic occurred, additional adjustments were made by council, including the directive to host council meetings entirely virtually for some time on the Zoom platform. This matter was again revisited by council at the October 25th, 2021 regular council meeting, where council moved to stay at the Hub location for the time being. We bring this matter back to council because something significant from a policy perspective occurred with the provincial government, that being the lifting of the REP program, and we've identified 2 main venue options for council for the way forward. There's maintaining status quo, where meetings take place here at the Hub building, or at a time of council's choosing, there is the migration back to the existing town office, the council chambers located at our existing office at 1920 17th Street. That office is also wired in for the ability to have live streaming. So my point here is just to check in with council, given the lifting of the REP program, and to seek direction on where council would like to resume its in-person meetings going forward. My recommendation is that if council wishes to have council meetings take place at the original council chambers at the town office, that start the first meeting in March, just given that that's a significant date where March 1st has been flagged as phase 2 of the lifting, and then that way you don't have to navigate the physical barriers, physical distancing, and masking relative to the size of that facility.
Okay, thank you. And just sit on that for a minute. I'm going to hit the pause button, and we're going to jump forward to our public hearing that's scheduled for 5:05 p.m. So we'll jump to agenda item 6.1, public hearing regarding the video lottery terminals in Coaldale, bylaw 840-R-01-22. And we have Cameron Mills, Manager of Economic Development and Strategic Initiatives, presenting this evening. So Cameron, the floor is yours.
I appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to this item, as mentioned, this is with respect to bylaw 840-R-01-22, which considers for the provision of the installation, operation, and use of video lottery terminals, or VLTs, within the town of Coaldale. This bylaw was provided first reading at the January 24th, 2022 regular meeting of council, and we have moved to engage in a public hearing prior to consideration of further readings of the bylaw. At this point, administration has had the opportunity to present to council at this point, and we don't have any additional information to provide as part of our presentation. So we at this point will cede to the public and to hear what the public's input is on the matter. And I will remain in the room and provide the opportunity to answer questions as they arise as council sees fit.
Thank you. Okay, so Mel, you want to send in the first 3 speakers, please? We're just going to do one at a time, or we got, okay. So good evening. My name is Jack Van Ryn, and I will be chairing the public hearing, and I want to let you know that all questions and comments shall be directed through myself. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is subject of the hearing this evening. This is a formal hearing and is not a debate, and you're welcome to speak, and you've pre-registered, and we will be giving you an opportunity to speak on this matter. Each presenter must state his or her full name, address, and their interest in this matter, including whether they are in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given the opportunity to speak. We will be giving you 5 minutes to make your point on either side of the question. And please refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers if possible. And if there's any new information that comes out of this from your presentation, you will be required to email a copy to our legislative coordinator. So if you want to introduce yourself, give it 1 second, please.
Like that?
Perfect. So if you want to introduce yourself, give us your address, please, and then you go ahead and speak.
My name is Ilya Kramer. I reside at 2130 25th Street, Coaldale, Alberta, T1M 1J4, and I am in favor of having VLTs in town. Good evening, Mayor Van Ryn, councillors, Town of Coaldale staff, residents of Coaldale. When my parents lived in High River, they occasionally enjoyed going to the local pub for a drink, and my mom enjoyed putting her $20 in the VLTs. It was their night out, locally. They supported locally. You can buy lottery tickets in town. There are 50/50 draws and raffle tickets sold, and everything else also sold out here in town, which many charity groups benefit from. All funds are from gaming. When buying lottery tickets, a certain percentage of sales gets put back into the communities. When applying for grants, have any of you ever asked where they come from? I'm going to read something quickly here. Alberta Lottery Fund. The Alberta Lottery Fund is made up of the government's shares of net revenues from lottery, video lottery terminals, slot machines, and lottery ticket sales. These revenues total more than $1.5 billion each year and are used to support thousands of volunteer, public, and community-based incentives annually. Many come from gaming, as I just said, and the raffle tickets, which we've had here in town quite every year, all are which available in town. But one, VLTs, which if you don't allow VLTs in town, then you must disallow all forms of gambling. Lottery tickets, 50/50 draws, raffle tickets, and no groups should be allowed to apply for the grants that they do, as it comes all from gaming funds. VLTs are no more dangerous than a candy store. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have 4 liquor stores in town and a cannabis store. There are 2 pubs in town. That's it, 2 pubs. And they want to get VLTs, which contribute to our beautiful community, which gives back in grants and other funds. And it's all done locally then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay. And I'm sure they gave you instructions on how to get out of the building?
Yes, they did. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elia. Good evening, Ken. So just to go over the rules of this public hearing, council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is subject of this hearing. This is a formal hearing and not a debate, and you pre-registered if you want to state your full name, your address, and whether you're for or against, and you have up to 5 minutes for your presentation, please.
Mayor Van Ryan and members of council, my name is Ken Schmidt. Address is 913 19A Avenue in Coaldale, and I'm in favor of the amending the bylaw, allowing VLTs in the Coaldale. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak in this topic, and more precisely having a bylaw amended, allowing VLTs back into Coaldale. As I said, my name is Ken Schmidt, and I've owned and operated Coaldale Inn for the past 6 years. One of our venues is Casey's Pub. Unlike 98% of the pubs and bars in Alberta, we do not have VLTs, which puts us in a distinct disadvantage to other bars and pubs and creates an unfair competition for us. Typically, a VLT player will have a beverage or two, a bite to eat, and possibly, in our case, an overnight stay. That loss of revenue for us is significant and felt even more so now that the current situation has plagued us for the last couple of years. The majority of that revenue also would remain in the community by way of purchases, employment, and charitable donations. Also, there's an intangible amount of money possibly spent on other services in town. Some concerns have come up that bringing VLTs back may tarnish the small town lifestyle that Coaldale currently enjoys. So approximately 20 years ago, the government mandated a cap of 6,000 machines in the province. Those machines are circulated based on performance. The higher performing bars and pubs will get more machines, the less performing ones will lose some of their machines. So the government is looking for maximizing the production. They're circulated within the province, and so in the case of Coaldale, each license, which there are 2 of us, would receive 3 machines potentially. So 6 machines in a town of 9,000 people. I doubt whether that's going to have a huge impact. I doubt we would see an exodus of residents leaving Coaldale as a result of having 6 machines in town. I also doubt any potential residents moving to Coaldale would change their plans. Coaldale residents are playing VLTs. They're just having to go out of town to do so. VLTs do generate a substantial amount of revenue for the Alberta Lottery Fund, and communities are able to access those funds for projects within the community. Shouldn't we be contributing our fair share? I think so. And collectively, we've spent, I think, enough time and money on this topic. It's not the first time it's been visited by us, and I hope the current council can approach this time around with an open mind and allow VLTs back into Coaldale. I sincerely appreciate your time and willingness to reconsider those past decisions, and hopefully we can turn things around. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ken? Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair.
Sure.
Maybe 6,000 machine cap in Alberta. If the machines in Coaldale potentially are underperforming, they could potentially be potential threat.
Yep.
Okay. My second question then would be, there's the worry of problem gamblers, and in liquor establishments, there's usually policies surrounding stop-serve policies surrounding problem potential for policies surrounding problem gamblers.
Not within the venue itself, but there are programs that the government has in place that people can access if they do need help in that department. But there's nothing for us as a venue to control what they do or don't do. We can advise, but that's all.
Okay, as a venue, would that be something that you'd maybe look at as a potential to, you know, if there was a problem gamer, as a venue, maybe step.
We do, and I have done in the past, recommended people, especially if they've won, say, a jackpot, to take the money and go home. And I would advise my staff to do that as well, because that's the best advice they can get. They don't always take it, but again, there are programs in place, and we would have the brochures up on the wall with the numbers and accessibility to those programs. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ken.
Very welcome. Thank you, all of you.
If you could sit in the center seat, please. Okay. Thank you. If you could please introduce yourself, and any comments or questions are directed through me as chair. Okay, please.
Okay. Mayor Van Ryn and Town Council, my name is Barb Gertzen.
Hey, Barb, can I just get you, I need you to give me your address as well, please.
I live at 2129 17A Avenue, T1M 1K3.
Okay, thank you.
I am in favor of VLTs. Apparently, my mom's dad used to take eggs and cream to sell in Calgary, but spent the money on gambling and drinking. Consequently, no one in our house was allowed to play cards for money. Alcohol addiction also was a problem in my mom's family. My heart goes out to any of those that have problems with addictions and gambling. I spent a lot of time trying to understand the addictions, and I know that trying to remove the temptation from an addict does not work. VLTs, casinos, raffle tickets, bingo, horse racing, and now online gambling are all forms of gambling. According to Calgary's Dream Center, 75% of Canadians gamble, but only 0.7% are addicted. Keeping VLTs out of Coaldale means people will travel to Lethbridge to play VLTs, buying food, gas, and other things that they might buy in Coaldale instead. The town of Coaldale held a public hearing about 5 years ago, revealing a well-done, statistically significant survey, meaning that it was a good sample, finding most residents in favor of VLTs. I believe there were more people at that meeting in favor than against, but unfortunately, people like me did not speak up, and I think it led to an unnecessary plebiscite. Needless to say, I respect and appreciate the town's past and present efforts at public consultation. We love horse racing and know many people who enjoy VLT and bingo without destroying the family budget. There will always be people who spend money they can't afford on gambling and other things. We are amazed at how much money people spend over the years when we volunteered at bingos. There is much more potential for supporting any kind of gambling problems in a small town where people know each other and can support each other than having those people lost in big centers. Given that online gambling is now available, I cannot see any reason to keep VLTs out of Coaldale, and thank you for hearing my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the presenter? Okay, well, thank you very much. Good evening. Renee, if I could get you to state your full name, address, and for myself as chair, if you could direct any questions or comments through me, please.
Good evening. My name is Renee van der Wendel, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Coaldale Chamber. My address is interesting. I live on Main Street in Coaldale, number 200050, Township Road 92.
So just for clarification, then you're just in the newly annexed area.
It's an annexed area, so we don't have an actual official Coaldale address just yet. So.
Okay, thank you.
But I am in Coaldale, and so is the chamber. Thank you for hearing us tonight. I'm going to try to keep this very short. The chamber is speaking very strongly in favor of VLTs, as is probably not a surprise to you, because we've appeared here a number of times. In short, we believe that free enterprise should prevail as much as possible, and whatever this council can do to support the business community here, we believe will ultimately result in a better Coaldale, a stronger Coaldale. The only thing that I'd like to just touch on, that a little rumor that I've heard, is that there might be a possibility that this council may request owners of establishments with VLTs to contribute money back to the community. If that's something that you're considering, I would request on behalf of the chamber that you don't do that. I believe that would be a little unfair to the other business owners, or to those owners, because you don't request that from anybody else. So with that, I don't want to say too much more, because I think you know where the chamber stands. Appreciate the opportunity, and we wish you well with your decision on the topic.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Are there any questions through to Renee? Councillor Chapman?
And then through to Mr. Van de Vendel, thank you so much for joining us this evening for this public hearing. Just a couple of questions with regards to the chamber that you refer to, and I appreciate the chamber's interest over the past several plebiscites, or last two plebiscites that the town's taken on. And just a question with regards to the chamber: has there been a motion or even a debate amongst the chamber membership on this matter? If you could help me with that question. And then I'll have a second question with regards to contributing back to the community.
Mr. Van Rijn, I believe we organize ourselves in a way where we are elected on the board by the membership, and the board has provided a mandate a number of times to myself and other people to speak on behalf of the chamber. We have done some straw votes, if you will, of our broader membership in the past on this particular issue. But if you're asking for an official motion and question by all the members of the chamber in this regard, that has not been done.
Thank you. And my second question to you would be just maybe more of a philosophical question with regards to contributing back to the community. If a business owner would like to contribute back to, say, even the community grant, would that be their option, or obviously council is not asking or requiring that as a condition of VLTs, so I just would be interested if this is a personal decision that you're suggesting on behalf of the business community?
No, it was simply my comment based on rumors, and strictly rumors that I'd heard, that this might be one of the conditions you could impose, and if that's not the case, then there is no issue. We do believe that many business owners in this town believe in this town and show that through their generous donations from time to time in support of community events. So we would hope that that continues with these kind of businesses as well.
My position would be that just maybe through the mayor, is that I would not be personally sitting here at this table as an elected person requiring a contribution from VLT dollars or lottery dollars back to the community directly. That would be an option of the proprietor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Deputy Mayor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Just for the people watching, what percentage of the town businesses are chamber members that you are representing?
Back to Mayor Van Rijn. We are currently actually working on those statistics. We don't have them quite at hand. We just recently obtained the full list of businesses through the town administration. So I can't give you an actual answer. I can tell you that we are growing in recent years. The last couple of years we're growing again. And our membership is around 100 at this point.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Jack Van Ryn, and as part of council, we are here to listen to information presented and make a decision on the matter that is the subject of this hearing this evening. So any comments, questions from yourself have to be directed through myself. And if you could introduce yourself and give us your address, and then you can go ahead and do your presentation, please.
My name is Joop Harrison. My address is
Well, one second, Joop. Can you turn your microphone on there, please? And Joop, I'm just going to get you to start over because the microphone is for the sake of our listeners at home. So I'm just going to, so they know again, I'm just going to ask you to state your name, your address, and then I also want you to state if you're for or against the subject matter this evening, and then you can do your presentation, please.
My name is Joop Harrison. Address is box 1621 Coaldale, and I'm in favor of the VLT's
and just
council.
Just want to confirm your address. So you're in the newly annexed area of Coaldale?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
So I can give you my 911 address is 90042 Highway 845.
Thank you.
The matter of the VLTs, I'm in favor of it because I think it gives the businesses in town who can have them an extra financial opportunity to make some money, especially in these hard times. Recently, I talked to quite a few people who work in some of these businesses, and they say sometimes people come in, especially in the summer, and they ask if there's VLTs. If not, they ask if there's in neighboring towns VLTs also, or if there is VLTs in neighboring towns, Tabor, Lethbridge. And if there is, they just leave. So I think they lose quite a bit of business from not having VLTs. On the other hand, I think it's a very unfair competition to with our neighboring towns, businesses over there. And I think when people go to Lethbridge or Tabor to play the VLTs, we lose more business in town. So I think it takes quite a bit of business out of town. On the other hand, I realize that there's people who have a problem with gambling, but I think those people should try to learn and get some counseling and maybe try to learn and control themselves. So, and that's actually what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions through to the presenter? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out this evening.
You're welcome. Turn it off.
You can leave it on. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
So this evening, if you didn't hear when you were in the back room there, council is here
I did hear. I was listening on your live stream, and I can tell you that the councillors' microphones are not working on the live stream, but yours is.
Okay. Apologize for that. Our IT guy will look into that. So just to recap, council is here this evening to listen to information presented to make a decision on the matter that is the subject of this evening's public hearing. If I could get you to direct all your comments through myself, and if you can introduce yourself and give us your civic address, and then floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is John Vorhorst. I live at 930 20th A Avenue in Coaldale, and I'm opposed to this bylaw. My wife Jenny and I have lived at this address, have lived in Coaldale, not at this address, sorry, but I've lived in Coaldale since 1977. We have raised 6 children. We currently have 19 grandchildren. 2 of those children still live in Coaldale, as do 5 of our grandchildren. Some of you may know that my wife and I are members of the Canadian Reformed Church, also here in Coaldale. That builds a great foundation for our concern with VLTs. As a member of the church, as a person who believes that God has a lot to say about us in our lives, it's our understanding, it's our belief that being addicted to any form is not a good thing for human beings. We're concerned about operating or providing additional forms of addiction, including VLTs. Mr. Mayor, I'm also personally very perplexed. In 2017, this town had a referendum. That referendum indicated that 60% of Coaldale residents were opposed to VLTs. Personally, I'm also opposed to VLTs. I have experience with, I don't have personal experience, I have family experience with addiction. And it indicates to me that experience has given me evidence to show that addiction to gambling creates great difficulty for the family of the individual that's addicted. We also would like to provide, I would also like to provide some information on what VLTs will do for the town of Coaldale. You've already heard all of the benefits. In the March 31st, 2021 report from Alberta Gaming and Lotteries, in their annual report, that report indicates that in Alberta there are, at that date, 5,896 VLT machines, and they're distributed over 770 locations. The province of Alberta netted $545.5 million. The total revenue was an additional 8%. That's the commission that goes back to the individuals who have the VLTs. So approximately $600 million in Alberta, just in VLT revenue, just in VLT dollars. When we do the math, that's approximately $100,000 per machine. If we place 3 machines in Coaldale, that $300,000 would remove $300,000 from our GDP right here in town. That's a huge negative business impact. I've heard one of the previous speakers indicate that we would be eligible perhaps for 6 machines. I'm sure you can all do the math very quickly on that as well. So we have a substantial increased risk for a potential benefit of approximately 8% of $600,000, or my notes indicate it's 8% of $300,000, so $24,000 of benefit for a business. If there are 6 machines, $48,000 for that business. Approximately 8.6% of problem gamblers or lifetime pathological gamblers are related to VLT gaming. As councillors and Mr. Mayor, as you will know, to find current studies on gambling and VLTs is not easy. Not easy for me anyway. But we can tell that from some of the older studies and some of the newer studies that are picking up that information, that current problem gamblers have a lower than average household income, have a lower than average education. And so these are the people that would also have a higher than average risk of being addicted to this form of gambling. At ADAC, the gambling line call center, approximately 60% of the callers calling in because they have a concern, because they have an issue with a gambling issue, because they have a concern about a gambling issue, are calling about VLT concerns. So the total dollar amount that's being spent in Alberta on gambling, approximately 60% of the calls of problem gamblers are directly related to VLT gamblers. Mr. Mayor, I think that it behooves us to take a real serious look at the issue of moving VLT machines into our community. Approximately 8.6 of these gamblers are providing roughly 40% of the province's gambling revenue. So a disproportionately small number of problem gamblers are providing the large majority of the revenue for our province. Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, you could use your influence over the provincial government and speak to them about their addiction to gambling and encourage them to find other ways to raise money. Mr. Mayor, in conclusion, I would urge each one of you to vote against Bylaw 840- and the other numbers I think you have all in front of you. I would ask you, Mr. Mayor, to consider carefully the effects that gambling, the effects that addictions have on families. I would also ask you to consider carefully the cost of those addictions to our society. There's a substantial amount of money being spent by provincial government dealing with addictions in society. Mr. Mayor, I would also ask you to consider carefully the morality of this issue. One of the vices that's been out there for the Christian religion has always been the vice of greed, and we wonder if this would also play into that vice. I would ask you, Mr. Mayor, to consider those 3 items, and I would be happy to deal with any questions. If I can, I'll do the best I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the presenter? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. And through to Mr. Voorhorst, thank you so much for your presentation this evening. I just have one simple question to you. As you are aware that the town of Coaldale has held 2 plebiscites in years past, in 1998 as well as in 2017. Just for the sake of council's interest, what would be your opinion on holding another plebiscite? And I just asked that question, just more of a neutral question, speaking to the issue.
Thank you very much for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In my opening comments, I indicated that I was rather perplexed to even be at a public hearing when it was only just over 4 years ago that we asked the public, and the public said, 60% of the public said no to VLTs. If we want to go back to the public, I think that would be a better option than to just pass this bylaw here. It's only been 4 years that we've had the latest plebiscite. I think the public spoke pretty clearly. A 60% majority is a substantial majority, and let's just accept that and move forward. If that's not an option, then by all means, let's do a referendum again and let's ask the public.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? Okay, well, thank you very much. Are there any more presenters that you know of, Kalen?
No, there's not.
No. We're just going to see if there's any more presenters. Okay. Okay, so I will conclude the public hearing at 5:44 p.m. and that moves us back to our agenda item regarding bylaw 840-R-01-22. There are 4 options before council this evening. I open it up to the floor if there's anybody that wants to make a motion for one of them. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Avery.
Mayor Van Ryn, this time I just want to say a few things before we make any type of motion, because this is something that I truly believe we need to look at closely. So as the debate of VLTs has once again found its way on the council table, we as council need to reflect on the principles in which we campaigned: communication, public input, transparency, listening to the citizens of Coaldale. These are a few of the reasons which I ran on, and I know you ran your campaigns on the same. The residents of our town have twice voted out the instatement of VLTs. And here we are thinking, we as a group of 7 can vote in them for the benefit of 1 or 2 businesses. Why? I ask myself, why? What are the consequences of doing this to the other businesses? We've got no data. What is the impact on the families in our town? We've got no data. Why is this here at council? There's no data, except 2 business owners benefiting approximately from Mr. Vorhorst, $24,000 a year. We can't continue to throw, well, we get lottery money in our town. Yes, we all know that. I know that as well as other communities and groups benefit from the monies. These are the government of Alberta profits from the machines, which last I checked, we're all taxpayers in Alberta and deserve dividends on our profit. You invest in a province, we invest in a government, we should get those dividends back. We don't need a VLT for that reason. We all need to reflect on our campaign and the contributions that we may have received from any business or individual, as this needs to be public, as if the Motor Inn has contributed to any one of our campaign. We need to bring that forward. The citizens need to know, because they've been coming to me and they're very concerned that the Motor Inn has contributed to individuals who are on council and possibly the Citizens for a Better Coaldale group before council. This does not have to be monetary. It can be a free cup of coffee sitting in there. It could be a free beer, even a free meeting place being offered during the election campaign. So this all needs to be reflected, because this is what our citizens are coming to us with. We truly need to listen to the citizens of Coaldale and not our own agenda. Addictions are real. I've worked in the addictions field. It's not as simple as just removing the addiction from the individual. You need to support them. It's got to be a family. Our town is a family, and we need to keep that family atmosphere. Thank you, Mayor Van Ryan.
Thank you. So just from a procedural point of view, for the listeners at home, that's come up a couple of times this evening. So whenever a matter has been presented to council by a person or a group pursuant to section 16.1 and has been dealt with by council in any final manner, and a person or group directs a letter or communication to council on the same or substantially the same matter again within 6 months after the time council so dealt with the matter, council subject to section 16.5 shall not hear, discuss, or consider the matter again until 6 months has elapsed after the time when council previously disposed of the matter. So the last time this was before council and it was dealt with the plebiscite was in 2017. And it came up again with council in the last term, and 6 months has elapsed since that time. So anybody is able to bring back an agenda item again one more time. And council as a whole, even if it hasn't been 6 months, we can decide to bring something back if we wanted to supersede that 6 months, but that's not the case here. This is where a business owner has come forward and it's been over 6 months since it was last presented, so they're within their right to do that. And I'll open it up to our CAO if he has any clarification to that, or if I got it right.
That's exactly right, Mr. Mayor. The key thing is, even if something came before council within the last 6 months, council is able by making a resolution to bring a matter back to council. And I think it's also significant to mention that this is a different council than the previous council, and logically then a previous council can't fetter the ability of a future council to add something to the docket if they wish to discuss it. And this particular council did make a resolution directing administration to bring this item back to the agenda, so council is within the boundaries of its own procedural bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryan. I'd like to make a motion that council close the public hearing and request that VLT bylaw 840-R-01-22 be brought back to council at the regular meeting of February 28th, 2022 for consideration of second and third reading.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there any questions or concerns regarding that? Seeing none, call the vote, please. All those in favor? Opposed? Deputy Mayor Avery, Councillor Chapman opposed. Thank you. Okay, moving back to the agenda, going back to item 4.1. I apologize. I should have looked at the clock before I let our CAO present. But it goes back to our council meeting locations. Does anybody have any questions for our CAO regarding that? Councillor Chapman? Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. Again, I question the validity of the March 1st. Where's the statistical data? That was all brought up on hospital admittance, ICU admittance. I think this is something we need to look at in the future, not be so presumptuous that it's going to be just because the QR code has been lifted. It doesn't mean April or March 1st that other measures are going to be lifted.
Okay, and speaking on that, so you're speaking against the idea? Okay, and for myself, it's important that we are all in agreement to make this move because obviously we're going to be in smaller quarters and March, according to what's on the coming from Edmonton, is that March 1st we could change to have our meetings in person again at council chambers. So again, for me, I'm in favor of going there, but I will only do that if it's unanimous decision by council. So I'll open up the floor for anybody else that has any comments on the matter. Councillor Saylor.
Personally, I'm fine with either location, so if anybody else is uncomfortable with it, I'm perfectly fine staying here. So yeah, whichever people would prefer is fine by me. I feel safe around you guys, so I'd be perfectly fine there, but if some people are not feeling safe, then I'm fine with staying here as well.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn, and I concur with Councillor Saylor. I don't have a position either way, whether we continue to meet here at the hub. There's some very reasonable spacing here. We also have good live streaming program here, and of course my concern would be entering this a little too early. I think that March 1st might be rushed, and just thinking along with Deputy Mayor Jason Avery, I think it'd be helpful to work into this more gradually, and if April 1st is a good start. I guess one of the things that comes to my mind is not just for ourselves as council for meeting close, being that the other council chambers are very, very tight, but I'm also concerned for members of the gallery that might be wanting to participate or sit in at a council meeting. Like those quarters for the gallery are also very, very tight, and I just want to respect gallery members that might be in attendance.
Okay, open it up to Councillors Beekman and Pickering if they have any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim, is that working now? Awesome. The same thing. I'm indifferent either way. I would like to go to council chambers, but if I don't think we can make a definitive decision right at this time. We have to wait and see what the province is going to lay out. I mean, we're still 2 weeks away from the March 1st. If the province dials back the guidelines, I would be in favor completely of moving only if, like you said, everyone was unanimous on it.
Councillor Pickering.
Mr. Mayor, I too have no preference on either place. I'm comfortable around the councilors, but I will do, if the unanimous decision comes to move back council chambers, I'm okay either way with it.
Councilor Reese.
Some of what Councillor Chapman said and Avery as well. I mean, it is only 2 weeks away, but I'm comfortable with our team, our council team. So if that's the majority, everyone wants to go back, I'll go back. I was staying here too.
Okay, thank you. So with that being said, if there's no more question or comments, it's basically we're going to stay here or we're going to move to council chambers. And if we're going to stay here, whoever wants to make the motion, you want to add a new date to revisit this again. Councillor Beekman.
Just curious to know, can we table this discussion till February 28th, because we'll know more definitively what the Government of Alberta's plans are?
That's a good idea.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to table this discussion till February 28th meeting.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 7.1, Land Use Bylaw Amendment 841-P-02-22 to consider first reading. We have our planner, Melanie Messier, presenting this evening. Welcome, Melanie. When you're settled in, the floor is yours.
Mayor Van Ryan, and good evening, Council. The following report is to present Council with proposed bylaw 841-P02-22, which proposes a text amendment to the Highway Commercial C2 zoning district to include personal services as a discretionary use. Within the town, there are two main locations zoned as highway commercial, including the area off of Highway 3 and Land O'Lakes Drive, and on the eastern portion of town where the RCMP detachment is currently located. I will preface this report with that the amendment initiated out of an inquiry from a resident who is interested in leasable space off of the Land O'Lakes commercial area when they discovered that personal services was not listed as a use for the highway commercial zoning. As such, staff has prepared a text amendment with the following considerations. The highway commercial area is defined as to manage the development of commercial uses which require both high visibility and ready access to designated highway for the benefit of the traveling public. Alternatively, the personal services use is described as the care and appearance of the body or the cleaning and repair of personal effects. The commercial area located off of Land O'Lakes Drive consists of both highway commercial C2 and commercial C1 zoning, which is why you see this blend of fast food restaurants as well as medical offices such as a physiotherapy office. Policies from the municipal development plan that support the amendment include policies to attract a wide range of commercial businesses to the town and to work with existing and prospective businesses to strengthen the town's business base. Additional rationale for the amendment can include that there are currently listed discretionary uses within the zoning, such as pet care services that are comparable to the proposed amendment. Lastly, it is worth mentioning that the amendment would result in the use being designated as discretionary, meaning that the Municipal Planning Commission would be the authority to give the final approval for any business applying for this use. As required by the MGA, once the public hearing is set, a notice will be advertised in the Sunny South News for 2 consecutive weeks, and the public hearing will be displayed on or advertised on Let's Connect Coaldale. As the change does not affect a specific property, notices will not be sent out to surrounding property owners. And with that, Council is respectfully requested to vote on first reading of bylaw 841-P-02-22 or 22, and to set the public hearing date as March 14, 2022 at 5:25 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. So As per Mel's decision option, we're looking for to vote on first reading of bylaw 841-P-02-22 and set the public hearing date and time as March 14th, 2022 at 5:25 p.m. Anybody wish to sponsor that? Chapman, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thanks, Mel. Okay, moving on to 8.1, the community grant for 2022. We have Cindy Hoffman presenting as the Community Services Manager. Welcome, Cindy, and when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. This report this evening is to provide Council with information regarding the 2022 Community Grant Program and to request that up to 2 members of Council sit on the Community Grant Evaluation Team. For information purposes, 2022 marks the 6th year that the Town of Coaldale Community Grant Initiative has accepted applications for eligible community projects. In the past 5 years, the Community Grant Program has contributed over $181,000 to worthy projects within the Town of Coaldale and Lethbridge County. So the breakdown is there before you. So 2017, $33,925 was awarded in grant funding. 2018, $29,860. 2019, $47,570. There's a small correction to the 2020 funding. The actual amount that was granted was $34,817. So that is a discrepancy of $183 from my original staff report. That it was mainly due to at that particular year we did not, or Council did not approve partial funding. So it was all or nothing. So we were that $183 short of that $35,000. And then in 2021 it was $35,000. Applications for the 2022 community grant are being accepted now until May 4th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. And the criteria for eligibility include not-for-profit or volunteer-based organizations that operate within the Town of Coaldale or that portion of Lethbridge County included within the response areas identified within the Joint Town-County Fire Services Agreement. The program must include programs, projects, or events that contribute to the social well-being of the community, address a community need, and enhance or improve the quality of life for residents of the Town of Coaldale, and a completed application package including requested supporting documentation must be received by the deadline. It should be noted that applications are not considered for groups of a political nature, for-profit organizations or commercial entities, individual persons, school boards, and provincial or federal bodies. After the submission deadline, all applications will be reviewed and evaluated against eligibility criteria and community impact criteria to determine which projects will receive full or partial funding. The community grant is generally oversubscribed, and as such, the task of carefully evaluating the merits of each project by the evaluation team becomes a very important task ahead of making recommendations for distribution of monies to Town Council. Part of the package was the actual application form. So in there you can see the criteria that the evaluation committee would look at against the project. So basically, we're just wanted to present a little bit of information to Council, and that we ask that Council appoint up to 2 representatives to participate on the grant evaluation team. We feel that having Council members as part of this team would add valuable input into the assigning of monies to projects in the community. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. I just have a question, Cindy. I sent an email requesting the breakdown of the grants since it started. And I had a call on Saturday morning after this was up on the town's website. And the question came up about extension of government. And So when the grants are looked at to see who qualifies, because you said earlier in your presentation that the grant requests are oversubscribed for the amount of money that's given out. So for the terms of reference for this, is there any mention of extension of government? And I guess that would mean any entities that are involved with the town of Coaldale. And I'm just curious if there's anything in the terms of reference that bring that up, because I said I would ask the question, and I can either leave that up to you or to our CAO.
To be very honest, I'm not quite sure the meaning of what your question is. So if the CAO would mind helping me out, I would appreciate it. Sorry.
Good question, Mayor Van Ryan. The question is whether government entities are eligible to participate in the grant program. So a government entity would be like a school board, for instance, could Palliser School Division, or the parent council at R.A. Baker School on behalf of the school division. Are you looking at eligibility along those lines?
Those and then any groups that are associated with the town. So going through this list, like FCSS, and then they even got on here the Coaldale District Volunteer Firefighters, and I realize they're donating to the volunteer aspect of that, and the schools you mentioned. So I was just curious if anything in the terms of reference are listed.
It could be, without having looked at it in great detail recently, it could be an area that's gray. My suggestion to council is that if council would like groups like that to be eligible, to just make a resolution clarifying that what is currently gray be black or white as at the conclusion of this presentation, just so we can make sure that's clear in the event we get inquiries. In the past, Coaldale District Emergency Services Association has been applying because they were eligible, given that they're a nonprofit, registered nonprofit. So by virtue of that, they have been eligible in the past, and they have received funds in the past. But I think a ruling from this council on what you would like your guidelines to be would be helpful for staff going forward.
And, you know, we don't need to do this tonight, but it's something we can look at for next year. Like, we can talk about it more. Like the application program is already listed on the town website, so it's set in place for this year, but it's just something that I said I would ask. Councillor Chapman, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryan, and I completely concur with you that this should be an item that we should be reviewing and reviewing the terms of reference for that. I know that some of the groups that do apply certainly are entities unto themselves. For example, FCSS would be one where they're dependent on external sources for other support programming. My question would be through to our CAO with regards to just ensure that we have clarity with regards to members of council that do sit on other committees or boards whereby they might be applying for grants, and just to ensure that we have clarity that none of us will be in a conflict of interest, that there be no pecuniary conflict of interest. So just for that piece of clarity. The second piece I'd ask through to our CAO as well with regards to our budget and our strategic planning, particularly with budgeting, the $10,000 that we would have to remit to the province for administration fee. I think it was for photo radar. Is that being taken off this community grant?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman. So to the first question, if a council member is working with a volunteer organization as a committee member to submit an application for funds under this program, that wouldn't constitute a pecuniary conflict of interest because you're not enriching yourself personally. So you'd be serving your capacity as either a volunteer in the community or on behalf of a council-sanctioned board or committee. My recommendation from a governance perspective, however, would be to disclose the nature of your involvement with the application, and then the onus is on you to decide whether you wish to sit in on that discussion or not, giving that it's a non-pecuniary connection to a particular proposal. On the budgetary item, I do recall this being a fairly robust discussion at the council table during budget deliberations. There wasn't a definitive decision made by council to reduce the amount of dollars available for 2022 grant applications by the amount of the new expense for the provincial mandated software that we have to issue tickets on now. So to answer your question, no, it hasn't been reduced from that revenue. However, we as administration brought that up as a potential scenario should council wish to absorb that 10,000 at the time, but that wasn't a ruling that was made during budget deliberations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions through to Cindy? Okay, so thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Saylor.
I was just curious, do you know, you're looking for members to sit there, do you know what time and date that they meet by chance?
Yeah, I just kind of looked at the calendar. Since the close date is May 4th, packages with all of the applications would be available by Friday, May 6th, and I would hope to meet by Wednesday, May 11th. From past experience, maybe 2 to 3 hours to go through everything. It could take longer depending on, if we need to investigate further. I try to do that all in advance. If questions aren't answered or the applications aren't filled out properly, I'll try to get that all done beforehand. But I'd hope for that, probably that second week of May, just one morning or one afternoon.
So are you volunteering then, Councillor Saylor? I'm just checking the schedule. Okay. While he's checking his schedule, is there any other member of council that wishes to sit on this committee? What time of day would you be meeting?
We could work around council's schedule.
Do that.
Okay. Councillor Beekman.
I'd be willing to sit on the committee provided, if we can align a time that would work out. I can work my schedule into that too, okay. But if we can go something kind of later in the day, early evening would be perfect.
Thank you both, and what I can do is I could just send out some options, and then whatever works basically for you, we will make work on our end. So,
and if things don't work out, I can be an alternate.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so then with that being said, decision option is to that appoint 2 representatives, which we've done, and to accept the remainder of the report as information as presented. Someone care to sponsor that motion? Councillor Pickering. Any other discussion? Councillor Beekman.
In that motion, should we include that you are going to sit as an alternate, or
sure, we can add that to the motion. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 8.2, notice of intention to develop. We have Cameron Mills, Director of Growth and Investment, that's going to be presenting on that. Cameron, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Van Ryn. You can probably tell chronologically how I wrote my reports based on my title changing as the agenda moves forward. So
maybe before you go into the agenda item, maybe just give us a little brief on your promotion.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So as you're aware, my colleague Spencer Croyle is moving on to another opportunity at the City of Lethbridge, and we're obviously very saddened to see him go, but excited for him for his opportunity there. And I've been provided with a similar opportunity to move into the director position within the department, to engage as what we now call the Director of Growth and Investments. We'll have the opportunity to oversee both the planning and development side of things, as well as continuing on in my roles directly with respect to economic development, communications, and what we've loosely called strategic initiatives, which I also sometimes just call helping, but it's generally speaking taking advantage of some of my my business experience and my different background to provide that assistance to the town. So very exciting opportunity. A lot of very interesting projects happening in the near future in the town. So going to be no shortage of things to keep myself well engaged. So
I can tell you're new in the position because you have to look down and read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is a sort of an interesting thing to bring before council. What we have here is what we're calling a notice of intention to develop. And so we were in receipt of a letter from Raymond Martin, who's from Martin Geomatics, and he represents, provides professional services representation to Dominic Land Development Corp. And Dominic Land Development Corp owns the lands that we might refer to as sort of the extension of the existing Westgate neighborhood. So west of the Westgate neighborhood, north of the golf course, over to 30th Street. And there's an area there, and they're proposing to engage in the development of that area. Now, the area is subject to an existing area structure plan. However, that area structure plan is about 20 years old at this point, and we believe that in advance of them moving forward with a detailed design of the subdivision, it would be appropriate to gather some community input with respect to what the development of that area might look like. So we'd like to engage with the community, make sure we understand what people's hopes and opportunities they might see with the development of that piece might be, but then also understand what some concerns and challenges might need to be, and then use that information to inform the more detailed design that would go forward in preparing for the development of this space. So for that, our proposal is, as a town, as town administration, to come back at the next council meeting, the February 28th council meeting, with a public input, public participation plan for that, where we can outline for council how we plan to engage the community with respect to that information, and then get council's direction with respect to that, and go forward and engage in that, and then use that engagement and use that knowledge that we're receiving from the community to pass it along to the developer and ask them to incorporate to the best of their ability the feedback from that into their design, and where that feedback isn't incorporated, certainly to ensure that we engage in a discussion with them about why that may not be feasible.
Okay. So pretty straightforward. Is there any questions for Cameron? So our recommendation is that council to direct administration to prepare a public engagement plan for council's consideration at an upcoming meeting of council for the subject area. Any further discussion on that? Thank you, Councillor Chapman. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Yes, and congratulations. Okay, moving on to departmental reports. Item 9.1, RCMP Quarterly Community Policing Report. That was part of the agenda package. Are there any questions or comments on that report? I just have a couple of comments to make, and have to get our CAO to help me with pronouncing Sergeant David's last name. Marentet. Sergeant David Marentet. So on the statistics that were circulated, I sent him a couple of questions, and he answered me back. He's very quick at answering. And one comment that most of us have heard on the street is regarding the drug crimes in Coaldale. So I'm just going to read his response that I found quite interesting. And he stated that our actual drug crimes are extremely low and have no statistical value. Subjectively, we do have a few key people who reside in Coaldale and are engaged in the routine abuse of controlled substances. It is not surprising that these individuals are also responsible for a majority of thefts and break-and-enters that do occur. So to date, the strategies we have applied to address this problem have included bait cars, the SCAN program, which is safe communities and neighborhoods, engaging public health inspectors, and working with the town of Coaldale and CPOs to shut down several problem properties. In addition, we have partnered with the adult probation surrounding RCMP detachments, Lethbridge Police, and the Crown to apply habitual offender management program that has had some excellent success against our prolific offenders. And then looking specifically at theft under $5,000, we have had a substantial decrease in files related to the offense. Decreases such as this are typically due to many reasons, including policing efforts, social economic issues, the pandemic, people simply not reporting the offense, and so forth. Regardless, over the last 4 years, we've seen a 69% drop in theft under $5,000 for calls of service. For some of the other property crime fields, the numbers are very small, so small changes and result in large percentages but are statistically meaningless. For example, in 2020, there was only one motor vehicle file for one stolen motor vehicle from Coaldale. In 2021, there were 3 of them. And then on the graph, that's where it kind of piqued my interest. It showed a 200% increase in vehicle thefts, and it ended up being that the same person stole 3 vehicles. So he's responsible for the increase of 200%. For example, so it would appear that auto theft crime is, like I just stated, up 200%, but that's not really the case. He stated in reality the same individual went on a spree and stole all 3 vehicles and ultimately is 1 file and 1 accused. So the only property crime category that has seen a rise is mischief, damage to property. In 2020, RCMP received 9 calls for service related to that offense, and in 2021 they had 15, which was an increase of 67%. And this offense is for things like vandalism to the RCMP building, prisoners damaging the inside of police vehicles, damage to cells, graffiti in the public, breaking a window, breaking car windows, and so forth. Overall, in terms of property crime, Coaldale is actually very safe on a divisional level. The majority of our property crime calls in Coaldale that are real are typically related to individuals testing vehicle doors through the night to see if they can get into vehicles and steal whatever's inside. Similarly, in the summer, unsecured bicycle theft is the main source of theft under $5,000. Our more significant property crime files have been the result of habitual offenders that are routinely in and out of prison and the criminal justice system. So that was a very good report that he sent me. And something else that was mentioned for people experiencing any small concern, whether it be somebody trying to break into a vehicle, they see him in their backyard, checking the doors on the house, it's important that they make the phone call to the RCMP because that makes it into their crime statistics, and they need that information so that they can look into that further. So, yes.
Mayor, would you like to have that report read in as correspondence? I think it would be really nice to have that included in our correspondence package.
I can do that, yes. And the quarterly report, so for that, I just need somebody to make a motion to adopt the report. Councillor Chapman, you want to do that with that amendment you just brought up? Okay, so the motion will be that the RCMP quarterly community policing report be adopted as circulated, with the addition of, I'll add the email from from Sergeant David Mariette. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10.1, Council and Committee Reports. We have Councillor Rees presenting this evening on the Emergency Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryan. The purpose of the Emergency Advisory Committee is to advise the Town of Coaldale Council on matters that relate to the development and operation of a gold standard operation in the Town of Coaldale. An emergency management program in the Town of Coaldale, sorry. The committee was formed as a steering mechanism to facilitate guidance, vision, decision-making, oversight, and policy development with respect to the emergency management program under the Emergency Services Department of Coaldale. The committee consists of 1 member from council and 3 citizen members. The Emergency Advisory Committee meets 3 times per year, with the first meeting commencing on January 19th, 2022. In said meeting, we reviewed 3 items of emergency planning and preparedness for the town of Coaldale, which included the Storm Waters Operation Plan, Coaldale's Risk Assessment Report, and Coaldale's Self-Assessment, all of which were concise, up-to-date, accurate, and met all legislative requirements as per the Municipal Government Act, the MGA. One item that was brought up that Council's already mindful of is the town's shortage of Alberta Health Services ambulance vehicles, which is therefore causing a delayed response time, which is therefore causing code reds, which in essence just means that there may not be an ambulance at the ready in the case of an emergency. I completed the Incident Command System 100 training, also known as the ICS 100, which provides a foundation and a history for a clear understanding of the emergency management program and its protocol. The training was skillfully executed by the town of Coaldale's Deputy Chief of Operations and District Emergency Services and the Director of Emergency Management, the DEM or DEM, Clayton Rutberg. With Clayton and his team at the ready in case of an emergency or disaster, whether it's natural or human-induced, the town's residents can rest assured that Coaldale is well prepared should an incident or a situation arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. That was very in-depth. You set the bar high for the next person that's got to do a report. Any questions for Councillor Rees?
None? Good. Mike's off.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item 11.1. We have correspondence from RCMP Deputy Commissioner, and that's related to AUMA when Councillor Chapman, myself, and our CAO met with the Division K, they call themselves, right? So, no pressure, Councillor or Kalen. Can you just give a brief update on that discussion and where we need to go with this?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Van Ryan. We had a good meeting with the RCMP folks at the AUMA. They also had representatives from the Solicitor General's office there, so you had representation from both levels of government. And in that meeting, Mayor Van Ryan, Councillor Chapman, and I reminded them, because there's often new personnel when you attend these meetings from year to year, got them up to speed about Coaldale's 70-30 dilemma when it comes to the cost for policing in Coaldale. We reminded them that Coaldale was the only municipality in Canada between the population of 5,000 and 15,000 that paid for RCMP police servicing at 100% cost. How it works across the rest of the country is that municipalities will receive RCMP policing at 70% cost. And if you're over 15,000, it's at 90% cost. And the reason that there is a discount is that we provide standby in the form of the RCMP members that we pay for national emergencies. So in the event there isn't a national emergency, in our policing contract, there is a clause that states that the provincial government, in this case the K Division, on behalf of the province, is able to draw up to 10% of the RCMP members assigned to Coaldale to be redirected for a national emergency. This is a big economic benefit to the federal government because they don't have to pay for a National Guard or a National Reserve. It's called the RCMP, and we pay for the standby just by employing them. So that's why there's reciprocity. Unfortunately, Coaldale, although they're able to draw up to 10% of the RCMP personnel from Coaldale in an emergency, we don't receive the same reciprocity as every other municipality in Canada by getting that 30% discount to acknowledge the carrying costs that we're saving the feds. And this has been an area that we've been lobbying the federal government since 2015 quite consistently. And we reminded the personnel at that meeting of our long-standing advocacy concerns with respect to this inequity. As a follow-up, Mayor Van Ryan sent a letter to the then Solicitor General Casey Madu, who indicated that there was some sympathy on the provincial side on what our options may be. In this particular instance, this is the federal government asking for information that they already have due to the years of correspondence that we've had with them, and it's simply just a matter of sending them a repackaged version of information that they're already in possession of. The strategy, though, was to first speak with the provincial minister, Casey Madu, about this matter prior to resending the same information that we've sent historically to the federal side of the equation.
Thank you. So is there any course of action that still needs to be done on this then?
I think given recent events, it may be a good idea to begin working and taking the panel that we met with up on their offer to re-engage discussions with them, just recognizing that we have had these discussions with them, it seems, with what seems like every single year, but it's just a matter of getting the new personnel up to speed on the file again.
And then we're still waiting to hear back from the Solicitor General's office on the letter that was sent. So to do a course of action for this then, could we maybe have council pass a resolution that we do exactly what you just mentioned, that we send that package, like you said, you've done this all once before, so we can just redo that again. So Councillor Chapman, you were up at that meeting. Would you entertain doing that motion for us?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to put that motion on the floor for council's consideration, and my just follow up to that as well to our CAO. I believe from some Mayor Van Ryan and I were at a couple of other meetings, and my understanding was that there is precedent set with other provincial jurisdictions whereby municipalities in those provinces have agreements with the province rather than with Canada. I think that's how they worded that.
Yes.
Not that we have to add that into the motion, but just for your knowledge that there is precedence in other provinces which we should research that could add to your report. Actually, well, let's add that in there to review other precedent provinces' agreements with municipalities.
Okay, so just to recap then, that we are going to communicate with K Division again, resend them all the information that they've had once before, and to add the last component, can you just repeat that one more time for Kalen's sake?
A component whereby precedents from other provinces having agreements with municipalities directly rather than with Canada. Somehow you can word that in there. Yeah.
You captured the intent then? Okay, any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Avery.
Curious, didn't we engage that lobbyist, retired RCMP staff sergeant, and where are we at with that?
The chair to Deputy Mayor Avery, excellent question. The recommendation from the consultant that we had a teleconference with was to work through the province. In this case, that would have been the Solicitor General. And to date, we have not received a response from that letter, but his recommendation was to try to work through the province for some concession for the equitable terms so that we would receive policing at 70% cost, which is essentially policing at the same cost as every other municipality in our peer size.
And a follow-up, if I may. So are they using our RCMP officers that we're paying 100% for at the border at this time?
Excellent question. We did receive notification or notice that the K Division could draw up to 10% of our members for that purpose. They would reimburse us for the cost of any personnel that they draw away for that purpose.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to item 11.2. We have a letter sent by Clive Shopmeyer dated January 24, 2022 regarding the several items, including the berm by the new school location. And I'm not going to read the letter out because that was circulated, but I think it would be a good idea for myself and the the two reps on the Birds of Prey Committee, Councillor Reese and then alternate Deputy Mayor Avery, to sit down with Clive to go through the different points in this letter. Are you in agreement with that, Deputy Mayor Avery? Councillor Reese? Okay, so I'll reach out to Clive and get some dates that would work for him, that we can speak to that. And further, as per our discussion at our strat planning, I spoke with Colin Weir from the Birds of Prey to extend an invitation for him to come out and do a presentation to council in the near future to discuss what their plans are and give us an update with what's going on and talk about any concerns that he may have. So he is going to get back to me when that would work for him as well. So with that being said, could I get someone to sponsor a motion that the Mayor, Councillor Reese and Deputy Mayor Avery meet with Clive to discuss his letter further? Councillor Beekman will make that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to information items. As part of your agenda package, 12.1, Emergency Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated September 16th, 2021. And we also received 12.2 MP Rachel Thomas Youth Advisory Board nominations. And we've also received 12.3 Municipal Affairs Alberta Winter or Summer Games 2024. And I would just like to ask our CAO a question on 12.3, because there's been some discussions regarding Coaldale applying for the Summer Games, but my understanding is 2024 might be a little bit early because of the construction of the new high school and joint or multi-use rec center.
Excellent question. I have chatted briefly with Russ Tanner, our Director of Recreation and Community Services, about 2024. The current construction schedule for the joint high school rec center project is spring 2024. The infrastructure in that facility would be integral to our ability to be a good host for summer games. My recommendation would be to have a motion for administration to bring back a more detailed report on these logistics, just to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where we put in a bid and then end up with a project that may be behind schedule, which could throw off the logistics of that bid.
Okay, thank you. So then for the two information items, that 12.1 and 12.2, the Emergency Advisory Committee meeting minutes and MP Rachel Thomas's Youth Advisory Board nominations that was circulated. Could I get a motion to adopt those two items for information, please? Councillor Reese, any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Two questions. One with the advisory minutes. Just maybe if you're going back to the emergency, to the committee again, I was just reading through their minutes there, and I'm curious as to what they define as quorum. So you have 2 out of 4 members, there was 2 present, and just wondered if that was suffice for quorum for their meetings, and so you can find that out. The second question I just have through to our CAO with regards to the correspondence with regards to the summer games. So I just wanted to get clarity in terms of what that really means, if the summer games are for the whole Alberta, all of Alberta, or the southern Alberta summer games. So those just 2 distinctions there.
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, excellent question. With respect to the summer games, we were referring to the Southern Alberta Summer Games. That's a more attainable size chunk for a community our size. Typically for the Alberta Summer Games, the application is significantly larger, and given our size, we would need to collaborate with other neighboring regional area municipalities, and given that level of coordination, you can appreciate the amount of work that goes into the application. And if the indication of the winter Summer Games is any indication, if they're providing an operating grant of $420,000, you can appreciate that you'd have to hire some dedicated personnel for the sole purpose of pulling off this event smoothly. So when I mention the 2024, that would be the Alberta, Southern Alberta Summer Games, just to give you clarification on the scale.
Deputy Mayor Avery.
This, though, to put in a bid for the Alberta Summer Games, not the Southern Alberta, because they're talking about a $3 million incentive for the host community and another $420 operating grant. So you're talking $3.5 million that the province is wanting to give to a community to showcase for the Alberta Games.
And just clarification, I'm just reading the first paragraph. As Minister of Culture responsible for sport in Alberta, I'm pleased to invite your community to submit a bid to host either the 2024 Alberta Winter Games or the 2024 Alberta Summer Games.
Clarification, yeah, this letter is inclusive of both winter and summer. But my recommendation, where we would have to bring a detailed report back to council, I think would be prudent. But I am signaling that the amount of work, notwithstanding the revenue, which would be quite incredible, there would be a significant tax on staff, and likely would require some additional resources to pull something like this off. To Councillor Chapman's question, the Southern Alberta Summer Games, that is a lot more smaller scale and often done internally from a community services department, but the benefits, the spin-offs, the amount of resources provided is also significantly smaller.
And maybe just further to that, there might be some grant dollars that might come down for the Southern Alberta Summer Games. It's won't be as significant, but it'll help. And I think we bite off a little bit before we chew big. I think that's it might be easier for us.
So, Councillor Chapman, you care to sponsor a motion then for administration to bring back a staff report regarding the, we're not going to...
Summer Games.
Yes, Southern Alberta Summer Games.
I would make that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then back to items 12.1 and 12.2. I should have mentioned that MP Rachel Thomas will be attending a meeting with council on February 22nd. 22nd, yes. So then we can speak more on her Youth Advisory Board nominations. And the town, I believe, is already advertising that on their social media platform. And some members of council are doing that as well. So with that being said, can I get someone to sponsor 12.1, 12.2 to receive his information, please? Councillor Pickering, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes the open portion. Just hang on, Bill, before you leave here. So it's 6:45 p.m. We're going to be moving into closed session in accordance with Section 197-2 of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for item 13.1, subject to FOIP Section 16, third-party business interests. Item 13.2, subject to FOIP Section 17, third-party personal privacy. Item 13.3, subject to FOIP Section 16, third-party business interests, Section 17, third-party personal privacy, and Sections 23 and 24, intergovernment relations. Can I get someone to make a motion to move into closed session, please? Councillor Saylor, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.